Hello again. I'm Brad Young with the North Carolina Institute of Political Leadership. Today, I'm joined by former Mecklenburg County Commissioner and Charlotte Mayor Jennifer Roberts, and she's here to talk about her new initiative with the Carter Center and the Trusted Elections Tour that'll be going across the state. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Great to be with you. We love our state.
So, tell me a little bit about how you got involved with the Carter Center, how you were approached for this, and what the goal of this initiative is.
Well, it's interesting. The Carter Center for decades has been working on elections around the world. One of the main things they do is help support democracy. They've had to help support democracy in a lot of challenged countries, Mali, Somalia, the Middle East. And in about 2020, they started looking at what was going on in the United States in terms of reducing trust in our institutions, trust in the elections process, concern about the polarization in our country. And so they decided to bring their expertise to the United States in helping support basic democratic norms. And there are a number of organizations that are doing this at the same time, but they have that interesting perspective of having worked in some very tough areas. And they are trying 2022. We have big midterms coming up. They're trying to get good information out, figure out, what kind of networks and influencers and good information can help us keep our democracy strong, can help us keep our elections orderly, peaceful. That peaceful transfer of power is a hallmark of democracy. How can we make sure our candidates are not promoting disruption and violence? And how can we have the average voter understand, how do elections work? Why should they know their vote does count? And it is important for everyone to vote. So some of that basic information, we know that in the age of the internet and social media, it's very easy to confuse people and spread bad information. So the Carter Center is trying to lend its expertise to help people get the right information.
And talk a little bit about the approach of this initiative, in particular the bipartisan nature of it. How have you tried to make sure that both sides are included and that you're addressing the whole rather than just speaking to a very vocal minority on the left or on the right?
Well, and the Carter Center reached out to me, and they reached out to me as a former mayor who's been in elections, who, knows a lot about kind of the layout of North Carolina and our culture. The first thing I said to them was, you've got to get a co-partner for me or a co-lead on the right side of the aisle, because I'm a name that's known to be on the left side of the aisle. We want to practice bipartisanship in the way that we're organizing all these events and this information. And so we have been bipartisan from the start. Bob Orr, the former North Carolina Supreme Court Justice, on the right side of the aisle, is working with me, and he's got great contacts in the Republican Party. I've got contacts in the Democratic Party, and there are a lot of unaffiliated folks now as well. We want to make sure that what we're talking about is democracy that works for everyone, not to advantage one party or another, but to make sure that everyone has accurate information, that people can vote and they will vote, because the will of the people is how we want to be represented. And, I use this great quote from President Reagan, because Reagan actually opened the Carter Center in 1986. He was there for the ribbon cutting, and he said, "We are all Republicans, we are all Democrats, because we are all Americans." And, that's the spirit that we're trying to help remind people about. And it's a great model. So the bipartisanship's important. We've formed a network of people from all across the state who lean left, lean right, or right in the middle, to try to help get the word out, about the tour that we're doing, to get our elections officials in front of the public, and to get the word out that democracy is worth supporting, that there are some basic principles that you want to adhere to, that we can all agree on.
And I'm glad that you mentioned the tour, because one of the ways that you're addressing this issue in our state before this upcoming election is through the Trusted Elections Tour. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is and how people can find out more and where these events will be?
Absolutely. So it's an easy website, nctrustedelections.com. And that website has all 15 of our events, because we're actually doing a virtual one as well. For those who can't show up in person or doesn't fit their schedule, we're going to record a virtual one moderated by Tim Boyum that will be available online even after the tour is over. So our first stop is August 30th in Wake Forest, and our last stop will be October the 6th in Hillsborough. And we're going to be going to, Asheville and New Bern and Southern Pines, Hickory, 14 stops all around the state, one in each congressional district. And we're going to have elections directors, the staff experts, as well as election board members who are, Democrats and Republicans who are appointed to get the full view of how do our elections work, what kind of preparation, what kind of security measures are in place, how do we know that they're not being hacked, how do we know that they're safe and private and secret ballots, just, kind of election 101 A to Z, so that people can ask questions. We'll invite the audience to ask questions. We're also going to have cybersecurity mentioned. We've got some folks from NC State who are experts in it. We know that our state elections website has security measures in place. And we also will have some attorneys who maybe have tried some lawsuits around, some questions that come up, because there are legal remedies when people feel like they're not being represented correctly or they're not following the law. So it's really about transparency. And we know that you increase trust when people have good information. That's what it's all about. So we hope that folks will sign up and join our tour, come to an event in person, or, sign up for the online event.
And is there any profile in particular of people that you're trying to reach for this, for these type of events, or what level of sophistication should people expect to bring to these events to really get the most out of them?
Well, of course, the people we really want to reach are ones who are concerned, who have questions. Is my ballot really secret? How do I know that it's going to really count? What if I'm confused about voting? There's so many different ways to vote these days. In person, early voting, mail-in ballots. So there's a reason that it is confusing, because things have changed. We have a growing state. District lines have changed. We've had some redistricting. So the people we really want to reach are those who have some concerns, so they can get their questions answered. But anybody who's a voter, we even are reaching out to high schools and colleges, new voters, first-time voters, people who just moved here from other states, maybe new citizens. We want to reach all those folks and help them trust the process so that they can vote. And, one of our partners in this is the League of Women Voters. We also have the U.S. Veterans Hall of Fame. Veterans care a lot about their country. So do women. But there, any group, there are so many different organizations who are helping us get the word out, because democracy is fundamental to all of our rights and freedoms, and we want to preserve it.
Well, last question before I let you go. Now that you've been involved for the majority of 2022, working on this project, has there been anything that's really stood out to you or surprised you about election security, about general attitudes about elections that you might want to share?
Well, I just think the stories that our elections directors have are amazing. And, I've heard about, when you have a count and recount, et cetera, for, 5 million ballots statewide election, and it changes by 3 votes. It's like, wow, that's pretty accurate. But you also hear about things like, there was a big hurricane that knocked out electricity. And so how did the voting machines keep going? Well, they had generator backups ready to go. And, the lights were only out for a few minutes, lights came back on, machines kept working, people kept voting. Things that the average person doesn't realize how much preparation and training and real concern that election workers have for democracy, for making sure it does work, recognizing how important it is. And these stories that you hear of things that you never would have thought of. The fact that in Mecklenburg County, not only do you drive a flash drive down to the main elections office to enter it into the computer, but you also have paper backups that get mailed at the same time. So you have like double backup and you have paper backups everywhere. And, these are the kind of stories that I want people to come away with, to say, our election professionals are thinking of all the different possibilities. They're here for our democracy. They're our friends and neighbors, co-workers. I always recognize the folks at my polling precinct because they've been doing this for years. But that's what we want people to really appreciate it, to vote with confidence, and to vote to express their view and their voice in our government.
Well, Mayor Roberts, thank you so much for joining us again today. And nctrustedelections.com. That's nctrustedelections.com to get more information about that, the Trusted Elections Tour, which will be all over the state over the next coming weeks. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope you'll come back and let us know how everything went when it's all said and done.
I look forward to meeting people all around our great state. Thanks a lot for having me.